Thank you, Ferdy, and the pleasure is mutual. I'm glad to be on with you. We don't get to do it very often, but it's always a memorable occasion. And just for the sake of all the things that I've done professionally, I think the thing that I treasure most is having been a minister for 9 years because I was able to do some significant things that are still enduring today. But thank you very much for the glimpse into my background. I'm here uh, to work with you on this program tonight.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So let's see what you have for us tonight, Glyne.
Well, my topic tonight is the public should not do government's job. The public should not do government's job. And I'm saying that in the context that, throughout history, man has shown himself to be a social and political animal. In other words, he needs to be in groupings to get along, to be socialized, to advance, to cooperate. He needs to be political in order to get things done for the development of society. And we've come to the point, as a democratic society, as a uh, a liberal democratic society, as we're in Barbados, we have a democracy since 1951, in which your only qualification now is to be of a certain age, from 21 to 18. All the qualifications all the disqualifications of gender and wealth and income have gone through that. So now we have a liberal democracy, like I said, in which people volunteer themselves as independents, as individuals, or their parties volunteer these people to be our candidates, to be our representatives, and ask us to vote for them on the basis that they have they're the best possible people, the best possible quality, the best possible ideas. So that is what they come to you with, to sell themselves, and we buy it. And we, over the years, we bought it between 1951. Since 1951, it's alternated. This choice have alternated between the Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party as to who should form the government and who would at various times convince the public that they are best suited and qualified. And this happened in 2018, that they presented a slate of candidates in a program that impressed the public of Barbados that they were best qualified to uh, to run the country and look after our affairs. And and that was against a background where we had a history of governments that have performed well in that regard, all advancing the interest of Barbados. Some doing different things, but all in all, I would think you can honestly say that both parties have contributed significantly to the development of Barbados. So we've trusted their judgment, something more than others or less than others, but there was a certain understanding and familiarity, and that they were here to perform at the highest level. So therefore, when that goes away, especially since 2018, and now, as today's events would have indicated, like you said, a government's primary objective and goal is to create a safe, stable, secure society for its people. Because without that stability and security and safety, none of the other sectors or institutions in Barbados in the country can perform creditably. And this is true to all societies. That is their number one job. If you want to see an example of a society which has not had the benefits of that stability and consistency of security, just look at Haiti as an example. So, so therefore, that is their primary objective, primary goal, primary responsibility. And of late, if I would say that based on the performance of the government, based on what forced the hand of the Commissioner of Police to come to the public today, that the government has failed in that number one responsibility, because they have not been able to bring to show any indication that they're bringing crime under control. Crime and gives the stability and security that we need, that we crave, that we voted for, and and in that way they've come short, very 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 short. So therefore, in a way, I was glad to see that the police have come to the public to give some kind of information. It's something I've been calling for. I think the last two times I was on air, uh, I called. I said the police, not the AG, not the Prime Minister, well, not Minister Kurt Humphrey, because he's yet to speak significantly, or even though he's Minister of Crime Prevention, but the Commissioner of Police, who operationalizes the work of the Barbados Police Service, should come to the public. I was hoping we would come in a more quiet environment, but I think that I think the police force and has been overcome by events. Those horrifying events we saw around, being paraded around and shown around Barbados on social media, especially. Um, that has disturbed that has come at a time to disturb Barbados even more, because of all my years, I've never seen Barbados so disturbed, so unhappy, so untrustworthy, so anxious to get home, so stay in their homes, trust nobody, trust anything, because they're not settled, they're not stable, they don't longer have confidence in themselves and the surroundings, and again, therefore, which is a failure on the part of the government, and to do that, and so therefore, when you hear the constant calls, even as recently yesterday in the at a BLP branch meeting in Christchurch East, where this whole of country approach, where we, the public, are now expected to find the solutions to the crime, where we, the public, are now expected to find solutions to the problems of education and health and water. In other words, those are all responsibility of the government, for which they are paid handsomely, for which they're rewarded, for which they get the pomp and circumstance of office, the prestige. But now they have somehow or the other, unlike other Barbadian um, leaderships and governments, um, it is as though they've thrown the hand up in the air and said, help us, please. But how can my major problem, with the attitude is, how can an ordinary Barbadian like myself, not familiar with the information that government should have in office? You have civil service, you have consultants, you have international organizations, you have recourse to information that the ordinary Barbadian does not. And if you have access to that information, have still not been able to come up with credible, effective, competent decisions, in this instance we talk about crime or any other matter, how could people who operate in not knowing nearly as much as you think, how can they make proper decisions that they'll be just shooting in the dark, and it'll be a hit or miss attitude. Therefore, I think I don't think it is responsibility. I don't think government should pass its responsibility for doing things in Barbados onto the public to help them out of it. And like I said, I valued my time as a minister of government. I would have been horrified and embarrassed to be able to, none of my colleagues while I was there ever did, to come to the public and say, we don't know what to do, either in words or action, because that you are paid to find out what to do and get it done. And to me, that's the most embarrassing and humiliating exercise for a party, particularly one which had prior to 2018 had prepared, impressed the public that they had all the answers to virtually everything, all and in Barbados. And the crime, I mean, they jumped right into the IMF program, which was in being formulated long before they were in the government. And they came up with programs with that. But where crime is concerned, where the linchpin of a society is concerned, right, they found themselves unable to come up with any credible, coherent, effective programs. And the situation gotten worse and worse. Ferdy said that he could remember the latest murder count. I think it's last night's event for the 26. That's the last count. Unless somebody who was injured died since then, I think it's 26. And that's a depressing number. 26 by almost the end of June is a horrifying picture for Barbados. And we still have not yet gotten the impression the government is on top of things and they have answers to what I mean. I was glad to hear that at last the commissioner admitted publicly that we have gangs, and this intra-gang warfare, um, assassination attempts, etc. That's inter-gang warfare. Now, so they've admitted that they are gangs. My only problem is that I have no idea how many gangs there are. I think the police or the public a clear exposition of how many gangs there are, what are their names, what are their locations, and what are their general areas of operation, and their colors, their symbols, or whatnot. Because this is there's a culture that's grown up in Barbados. You should be able to identify them, to either avoid them, inform police, describe anything that you think that's happening untoward in society. We need that kind of information. And therefore, that is a step in the right direction, but we have to come forward more and give them more than that. And the reason why I think I'm going back to my point about the public should not be called upon to do the work of the government. And this time, I was particularly concerned with the newspaper on Sunday when I saw the headline, Newton quits. Newton quit. Remember that Newton, you remember that Newton, Professor Newton had been appointed as chairperson of a citizen advisory a national advisory council on citizen security, right? I had been myself thinking, well, yeah, this was September last year, it was named by the Prime Minister. And I was thinking, well, we have not really been hearing much, right? Newton, we have not been hearing much, if any, about from this committee. And only about 2 days ago, I said, I don't understand what's happening. Now, I understand that they had the social partnership had a meeting last Wednesday, at which Professor New was supposed to make a presentation to the social partnership on the work of the committee. But she was absent from the meeting, and I was told by a couple of people who were there that her excuse was blamed on the fact was stated that she was involved in performing grandmotherly duties and therefore could not attend the meeting. Now, and then we get the news that she had quit. So I think what has happened, this resignation from the post had been in the works, and it could not have been announced. So therefore, the powers that be were stalling for time, but then it beat them to it in the news. And I noticed that the Prime Minister has not paid any tribute or thank Professor Newton for her work. And therefore, I don't think, therefore, it has not gone through the channels, and therefore, this rating beat the government to announce her departure. And this committee, which Professor Newton had headed, was supposed to be a blue ribbon committee council to do a number of things to bring ideas from the public to the government. Again, the public doing the work of the government. And quitting, she made some very interesting observations. Professor, and I quote her directly. However, the truth is that the offer was made, there's the offer to chair the council and accepted with too many factors not having been thought out and conveyed either to the public or to the council itself. In other words, it was a hastily put together council, and it reminded me, and she said it had no secretary, had no resources, only very few people attended because as a Blue Ribbon council, we're some of the best and brightest or some of the major institutions in Barbados were involved, they would have their own duties and could not therefore be available to the meeting. But like she said, a 24-size committee or council, what they call a committee of council, was immediately be obsocky and as she said, unwieldy to handle. So therefore, it could not function. It could not do its work. And now I am understanding why that is happening. But the fate of this committee, of this council, also reminded me of one that was called Economic Advisory and Job Creation Council, that was also created by the Prime Minister to get people. I think she wanted them to come with strategies and programs and policies to create 50,000 jobs in 3 years. 50,000 jobs. And that committee again had some very prominent persons on it, including the late Prime Minister, Owen Seymour Arthur. And I think there was also the former Finance Minister, Chris Sinclair, under the DLP, that she had pilloried for all those years. He was on the member of that council. But the council came to naught. And after 2 or 3 meetings, when people thought it was going nowhere, it died a natural death because the late Prime Minister Arthur stepped off, and it just ground to a halt. So this was again, and the rush to do this was apparently in reference to the Prime Minister after when he was leading the opposition had said that there was no reason why with the right policies Barbados could not create 30,000 jobs in 5 years. Then he became Prime Minister, a Minister of Finance, and he created 35,000. So in totally different circumstances, that was 1994, 95 and all, 94 hours. Now in this, they were being asked to create these jobs. Now, if if you could therefore read me if you can put up the slide for me on a flash. And I think the best Barbadians in parlance would say it was a hot and sweaty decision. It was a hot and sweaty council put together. On the other hand, in the Standard Dictionary, it would be described as a flash in the pan, which is defined as a sudden spasmodic effort that accomplishes nothing. A sudden spasmodic effort that accomplishes nothing is exactly what this council has done. Or another, something that appears promising but turns out to be disappointed or worthless. So there was a great hullabaloo on fanfare about this, about the creation of this council. And then it has come to naught. Nothing has gone on, come from it that would give the impression any input had been made into the fighting of crime by the government, by the police, by all the powers that be. And therefore, I'm convinced that this was another attempt to get out of the public what the government could not, why is it unwilling or unable, a combination of the two, to come up with credible, effective policies to reduce all crime. And I don't believe, one of the reasons, I don't believe that even the Democratic Party, which has been invited to a meeting to sit on a committee on this part all of country, should do, because if the Democratic Party, eyes of the Prime Minister, was not good enough, valuable enough, effective enough, had the skills and whatnot to deserve to share the subvention of government, $150,000, where they have been starved out. If the one-man opposition, they didn't deserve that, why should the LP use its scarce resources and scarce manpower to contribute to a cause when they're not good enough to benefit from the subvention and maintain their existence, make life easy for them, make them more functional, and also help to safeguard Democratic Party, the democratic system, and the two-party system, at least in Barbados. But before you do that, I thought I would also say that other countries, and we've heard a lot about crime in Jamaica for years. Jamaica has been battling against almost impossible efforts. But recently, I read where Dr. Horace, the the Minister of National Security in Jamaica, has reported some very interesting um, developments in Jamaica. And this story came from the Sunday Sun of June the 22nd. And it said Jamaica records historic 14-week decline in murders. Jamaica is experiencing a sustained period of reduced violence, with weekly murder counts at 8 remaining below 15 for 14 consecutive weeks since March 2025, the longest such stretch since in 25 years. Remember how Jamaica had this battle, uphill battle, and then, according to Mr. Shine, he said that their methods, they're okay. The government had undertaken to deliberate. The government had undertaken deliberate policy decisions and strategies, and deliberate policy decisions and strategic interventions. He said, including equipping law enforcement with the legal tools and authority needed to disrupt and dismantle criminal networks. That is something that we have not been hearing about. That people have been calling for in Barbados for the treatment for assault on crime, which we have not yet seen. We have not gotten the impression, the feeling, the perception that things were on demand, that there was a clear path cut ahead. Not that we expect the police to come and give us their details of their operations to tip off the criminal world. It's not that at all. We are saying that the public has to, if you want the public support, the public buy-in, if you want the public to see something, hear something, they must be convinced that that things are afoot, that there are programs and activities that would bring an improvement into their way of life. Because there's no doubt that we have seen a disturbance in the national mood, on outlook, on perspective that we've never seen before, and it cannot be doing the society any good. I noticed that the commissioner of police talked about describing the criminals as terrorists, domestic terrorists. Now this designation, this labeling of criminals in the Caribbean as domestic terrorists had been discussed a few months ago at the government conference. Probably the one I think the one that was held in Barbados, and that was one of the outcomes. I disagree with that label. I think crime in itself speaks for itself, and I don't think it was necessary to label the criminals as domestic terrorists. For among other things, I think it helps us to misread the situation. It gives a stigma not only to Barbados as a country, but Barbados as a country that depends on an international image for investment, for tourism, and from my understanding, for all I've read, from all the definitions I've read, that there's a different perception of crime, normative violence, as against terrorism. Terrorism reaches anxieties and a violence that unbeknown to Barbados and most societies, and therefore to have your image of Barbados has a very strong brand for many years, a very highly respected brand to which people respond every year. And if you accept what the Ministry of Tourism, Minister of Tourism has said, that we have had the people in the hotel sector, Barbados Hotel Association, we've had a very strong winter season, extracted into the point where all the hotels are, etc., are still doing very well. So Barbados' brand matters. Your brand matters. Freddie, as you know, you dealt with high-end. Your brand matters. So to
absolutely.
Barbados is a place that had been known for stability, openness. People walk around there. There was no segregation between then to be labeled a brand or competitors, I believe we do that against to get that into social media could do us a great deal of harm. And
We, we lost your we lost your volume for a moment there,
okay,
Glyne. But
uh,
Glyne,
uh,
if I could inject just for a moment here, because when you mention the word terrorists, because of what has transpired in the world over the last several years, I think it sends a frightening sentiment to people overseas on whom we depend so significantly for tourism. Because, it's one thing to have a country where you might have a high crime rate, because we know crime can be isolated in certain areas, and some people may still take a chance of coming to the country. But you take, for example, when I travel to the United States and I go into a mall today, Glyne, I go into a mall extremely cautiously,
right.
because I don't know if there's going to be a bombing. I don't know if somebody's going to walk in with a AK-47 or whatever and start to shoot everybody like we have seen over the last several years. So to hear the word terrorists, speaking of terrorism, um, it would not surprise me in the least if we see some travel warnings begin to be issued for Barbados for that statement.
And who can blame? Because all the embassies and high commissions, etc., in Barbados, all the diplomatic missions are required to report back to their headquarters what's happening in crime in the whole society. So if they send back, they're in there, or if even include that, and this is not Barbados has not been labeled as a terrorist location. We, through the police, have sought, and the Caribbean have sought to label ourselves as a terrorist, as potential terrorists, because we have serious crime, violent crime. That remember one time it was described as a health. It was a health crisis, that a public health
Yes,
crisis,
yes,
and
yeah.
now it has moved from being a public health crisis to a terroristic action activity.
If I could just read the definition of terrorism for the benefit of those who are watching Glyne, it says terrorism is the use of violence and threats to intimidate or coerce, often to achieve political or ideological goals. And clearly, that is not the purpose of the criminal activity that we're having here in Barbados. That is not the goal of those type of activities whatsoever.
There's no ideology. There's no religious, racial
No, no, no.
between it. It is just that we have now developed this aspect of our criminal behavior and our criminal history. But
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate. It's a self-inflicted wound that
Yes,
we've done to
and
ourselves.
and if I can mention as well, at the end of the day, Glyne, for whatever is talked, and I'm not even going, because I know we might had to jump off, and when I came back on, you were chatting about the words that the Deputy Prime Minister and Wilfred Abrams had shared and so on. So I won't go back to that, but
No,
it still does not answer a couple of questions, Glyne. How are the guns getting into Barbados?
that's right.
It
That's
doesn't
right.
answer that question, and to look at me and tell me that we need to do more as citizens. How many of us as citizens are going to put ourselves at risk? Because we don't know what we're going to be encountering out there now. We have no idea. We don't know if we go and somebody discovers that we have said something. Because they say what? If you see something, say something. I heard a gentleman on Brass Tacks today talking about the fact that he took that chance and things began to happen where he was concerned. So people are very afraid, if and I hate to use the word, to say anything when they see something that's going on in the country, because the fundamental feeling of the people in the country, Glyne, is that they are not safe. And the
And
number one uh, criteria of a government
that's
by
right.
the World Economic Forum, Glyne, this is not misinformation, false information, Glyne or Ferdinand talking about it. The World
But
Economic Forum has defined the responsibility of government.
but all the political literature, all the social literature def- outlines that the first and primary and most important duty is for a government to create a stable, safe environment. No, nobody's ever quibbled on that yet.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever challenged that number one position. And therefore, I thought it was unfortunate too that the deputy prime minister, Minister Abrams, yesterday at the meeting in Christchurch East, were quibbling and again throwing their hands up in the air and passing the buck on where's the robustness and the confidence that they were going to take on the rest of the world. We're going to be number one in this and number. Where is that? That has been totally absent, and therefore I would like to say that when you see this behavior on the part of the government, you probably you might remember this song. There used to be a calypso many years ago out of Trinidad in the days of Eric Williams. I forgot who who sang the song, but the words that were the memorable lines were, "If you can't run the country, you should call in Kirpaland. If you can't run the country, you can
Yes, I
call in
remember.
Kirpaland." Right.
Yeah,
Kirpaland, as you know,
yeah, I
was
remember it.
a major business figure and business
Yeah, yeah.
conglomerate. Right. So I began to get that the government, no matter what it says, is not is not is not is not cutting it. And I therefore I'm saying that I look forward to Minister Kurt Humphrey speaking regularly, taking the country to his confidence. He has not said anything worthwhile yet, substantial about crime, even though he is Minister of Crime Defense. He is so that not even the media attaches that to his portfolio. And therefore, we want to see that come. We want more consistent performing information coming from the police on their own to keep the public and not under duress as a result of the accumulation of serious incidents that has happened over the weekend.
Well, Glyne, I tell you, I really want to thank you for taking the time of coming in. I know that you're not going to be able to stay with us for our next segment, and we'll be continuing this discussion with you in relation to crime because we want to hear some of the young people's perspectives on this. Because, of course, um, they're going to be the people in the future that are going to be most affected by this. As a matter of fact, they're the people who right now that are being most affected by this. I was observing a number of the videos this evening relative, that you will pick up on the media, on the Facebook pages of the media, and I observed that the large percentage, if not all, of the people being led away from the court in handcuffs were young men, Glyne. I mean, able-bodied young men
But
that could be working and generating revenues and earning a living and running a business or these type of things. So
the,
obviously,
the,
you know,
if I can have one final comment on that, I think that is those young men are part of the Barbadian society, the Barbadian
mhm,
system everywhere. I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's something that's evolved out of the society.
mhm.
But I say, how do we get that? There was a report that 95% of the persons in charged with violent crimes read at the level of a 3-year-old.
Yes, I saw that report.
Right. That is a damning
It is.
count on Barbados for a place which
It
used to
is.
brag on 99, 98, 98% literacy. If we want to turn that around, the
Yes,
first thing
yes,
you have to
we do.
go to the bit, you have to go to basics and launch an assault on illiteracy in Barbados, illiteracy and numeracy as a program. That otherwise all this talk about transformation and
It's just a
school
lot of
on
long talk.
yeah, and because you'll be producing people who cannot contribute to that activity because they don't know the basics. When you're coding,
Yeah.
you have to be able to read, interpret, and express yourself too. So until we get like any other field, if you get the fundamentals wrong, you suffer it for any output and the results therefore. All
Well,
right.
Glenn, look, thanks so very much. I really appreciate you taking the time and the honor, for me, that is, of having you on the show tonight. I always really do consider it a tremendous honor. And one of these days, I probably will take the whole show just to read out all of your
So man,
accomplishments and
behave yourself.
achievements.
I want to be judged by what I say and do now.
Thank you.
The past is history, all right? And
Yes, I know. I know. Thank you so much, Glenn. God bless you.